Dear Dairy, so today, that makes it sound a little bit ominous, doesn't it? There really wasn't that much that was going on today. Um, there's a little remote control helicopter that we had at EA back when I started a year ago, and I think it belonged to one of the producers, and it wasn't working. So I figured I'd bring it home and see if I could fix it, and it works fine. It's just the batteries had run down. So anyway, I bought a whole bunch of new batteries and I charged it up and I took it back in. And the problem is it's missing because it's one of those counter rotating ones, so it doesn't really need a tail fan for to cancel out the torque of the engine or the motor. Excuse me. Difference between an engine and a motor. Look it up. I don't feel like describing it right now. But anyway, the anyway, an engine. Never mind. Look it up. But I hate leaving things undone. Just go and look it up. So it doesn't have, since it's got a counter-rotating rotor, it doesn't need a tail fan to, counter it. So it does have a tail rotor, but it's perpendicular. On any normal helicopter, it would, except for a Chinook maybe, it would be, a vertical tail fan, even if it's ducted fan tail technology like you would see on most Coast Guard choppers. It's still vertical, but on the little remote control one, it's a horizontal one. But there's no prop on it. The motor is still here, the little electric motor that spins, but there's no blades on it. So you can get it to go up and down, and it'll sort of drift as the main prop drifts back and forth. Basically, I just bring it up to a given level and blow on it and push it across the room. But the guys are playing around with it a bit today, and so one of the other QA analysts that works there was like, "Oh, I'm going to bring mine in." I was like, "Oh, good. So long as you guys get into your helicopter wars after I'm gone." And so this other guy brings in like this M60 sized Nerf gun thing. I'm glad I have 4 days left because there's going to be a war there. Let's see. What else was there? Were there any any new things? I introduced my housemates to Will Wheaton's show Tabletop on Geek and Sundry, the one with Seth Green on where they were playing the TIE Fighter, the X-Wing game recently, which was awesome because I knew that they'd want to watch it because they really like Seth Green. And so that was awesome. They really got a kick out of that. And they wound up watching the Star Trek Catan one right after that and having a good time watching that. So it's entirely possible that at least one of my housemates is getting the itch to start game night again in the house. So that would be awesome. Let's see. What else was there? Seems like there was some 10:30. Time for the yawning to start. Seems like there was some really important game news that came out today, and I can't remember what it was. I'm going to have a tiny drink of water here. Better. Okay, so I can't think of what it was. There was something I was just, whenever I'm driving, because sometimes, especially if it's bumper to bumper traffic, I get very bored because there's not really anything going on. Now, I love to drive. Most of my friends who know me, they know that I love to drive. But if I'm in bumper to bumper traffic, it gets very boring, and if I'm sitting in one place too long, I will start to fall asleep at the wheel. So it's, what I will do is, if I'm driving by myself, I will start scripting conversations. It's almost like a factor tree. It's like if you occasionally look up writing positions at BioWare, and they say they're looking for a game writer. One of the things that you have to know, especially like at BioWare Austin, that was a lot of water. If you're going to be a writer for a game like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, remember you're not writing one story. Even if there's one main story arc that goes through the whole thing, there's all the variations of answers and replies, and all the variations of answers and replies to those, and all the and it just keeps branching out, and then you have to learn to rein it back in because there are like keyframes to the dialogue of the story arc that you have to come back to. Read that as Mass Effect 3. Where it takes all of your decisions and turns them into nothing. Anyway, you're not writing one story, you're writing like 8, but they all have to converge back to the same point. And I've forgotten where I was going with that. Anyway, so that's what it was. So I will sit there and I will start plotting out conversations that I figure I'm going to have with people. It's like, people are always like, you always seem to know what to say in any given situation. That's because I've gone through the conversation, 10 to 12 times before I've even gotten into that situation. Because I just sit there and I plot out, scenarios on how would this conversation go down. Given what I know of this person, what are they likely to say if I say this? And then how will the conversation go from there? And partly it's figuring out what I know of the person, which is difficult if I don't have the person there to give some. The Cocker Spaniel across the street is very upset about something. Probably upset about the fact that I start theory crafting over conversations with friends of mine. Anyway, so, sorry. Bark. Yeah, I tend to do that a lot to keep myself awake when I'm driving. And so I'll wind up screaming about something if the story that I'm plotting out or the conversation that I'm plotting out goes into an argument, I will just start screaming in the car. That's usually when I roll up the windows and turn on the AC so that people in the cars around me don't realize as much that I'm screaming. There was a guy a couple months ago, though, on the way home, was playing some like raging death metal rap country. I don't know what music it was, but he was I was surprised that he still had a voice by the time he passed me, because he had his stereo cranked up all the way, and he was just, I think the song was just entirely obscenities that rhyme, which there aren't many. So lots of, actually I think I've only watched 2 SVU episodes, and depending on how long it takes to, I won't say edit. I mean, there's a little bit of editing. There's putting the fade in and the fade out at the beginning, and there's cutting off the leader and the trailer at the ends, where I'm sitting there going, Dear Diary, that thing, not diary, whatever, you know what I mean. And the points after I say be careless, where it's that 2-second window of reaching for the mouse button. I have to cut those off the ends. And then, put the fades in place. Adjust the volume and everything, whatever else. Then encode it, upload it, let YouTube encode it. That sounds like Red Rover, let come out. Anyway, same rhythm. Anyway, so tomorrow, Tuesday, TMI Tuesday on Twitter for a lot of people. Either ask, TMI questions or tell people things that are just way too much information. I noticed a lot of stars don't do that. Wonder why that is. Anyway, so, right. Not much else to talk about. Let me check my notes real quick and make sure that there wasn't something else that I wanted to talk about. No. Well, okay, I'll tell you what. I will actually talk about math and taxes because I hate them both. Like I said a couple of episodes ago. When I first started at EA and I was signing my paperwork for my contract and everything, signing up with the contracting agency that I was working for through to EA, setting up all my tax documentation. Now, when I've done this before, when I worked at EA the last time, because I worked there from 2006 to 2009, and then now I've been there for a year again. But the first time I was there, when I set up my taxes, I set the taxes to take out like an extra $25 out of every paycheck. Well, that's really not that big of a deal to me. And it's money that's never quite gotten into my hands, so I don't account for it. And I figured that's just to make sure that, you know, they always take out enough that I always get a return. That's my logic behind it. And it works. It works really well. What I did not take into account when I set it up this time is the fact that I'm being paid weekly right now. I'm not being paid bi-weekly like when I was a full-time employee before. So they're taking $100 a month out of my, that's $1,200. Is it $1,200? Yeah, it's $1,200 a year extra that they're taking out of my paycheck. So it's like when I filed for my taxes this year, I was like, oh my God, I got $3,000. Where the hell did that come from? It's because be very careful when you're doing that. And in fact, at one point I realized in the course of the year, I think it was around November or something, I was like, wait a minute. Oh crap. I've been taking all this extra money out. No. And so I dialed it down to like 20, I think. And I was like, that's still $80. No. And so I dialed it down to 10. So now it's just, 520. Is that right? I told you I hate math. I think it's $520, an extra $520. And I can live with that on top of whatever else. That's fine. No problem. Yeah, that's how you lead to surprises. And I would encourage people to do that because there is that little line on your federal, tax forms. When you're filling them out, just add an extra $5, onto that they take an extra $5 out of every paycheck. It's never going to go into your bank account to begin with, so you're never going to miss it. Now, some people can't do that. That extra $5 a week or whatever makes a huge difference. I understand that. I'm not saying everybody has to, but it can be advantageous. It was very advantageous for me because that's what allowed me to get all of my new sound gear, and which I'm not using right now because I think my preamp is busted, I think. So my very expensive microphone, which is up there and you can't see it, is not working very well right now at all. So I have to use the webcam microphone, which is advantageous because I'm using my webcam. Anyway, it's 12 and a half minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. Tuesday. All right, yeah, it is Tuesday. Okay, for a moment I thought it was Wednesday because Wednesday is the day that EA provides bagels and fruit for my team. But no, that's the day after. So tomorrow's Tuesday. Still got to go to the cafe tomorrow. Right, so I will let you guys go, and I'll get to finishing out the editing on this, and I will talk to you guys when I talk to you. Until then, well, actually, it'll be tomorrow. So, unless it's now like a year or something after I've made this and you're watching them one after the other, in which case, what are you doing with your life? You should not be watching these in rapid succession. No, just don't do that to yourself. Go and watch something that's actually vastly more entertaining, like So Be Careless, right?